Before we go on to closed session report, just to make sure we have some new responsibilities here among our board, and just to catch everybody up. And before we went on to closed session, I was selected the new president. Natalie was selected to continue on as clerk. George Zarati will be representing us in our October CSBA regional meeting. So we have a new member here. We don't know if you know it. Okay, so moving on. Closed session report. Announcement of reportable actions taken during closed session. No actions to report. And then 9.0, public testimony. 9.1, public comment period for items listed on this agenda and non-agenda items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the governing board. Are there any public comments? No, there are not. I can just move on. No. Okay, 9.3, RTA representatives. Do we have any report or anything from RTA?
We do not.
And then how about for CSCA?
We do not.
Okay, so moving on then to 10.0, governing board members reports and announcements. 10.1, governing board members. We will start with Cindy Gardner.
Okay, so first of all, happy holidays, everybody. I hope that your holidays are wonderful, that they're joyful, that they are stress-free, COVID-free, and that however you celebrate this year with your family, that it really is cozy and wonderful and heartfelt and loving, because this has been a really ridiculously challenging year. I know for personally, it's been a really crappy year, and I'm going to use that word, but it's really been awful for me. So I just wanted to say, I cannot wait to have a really great Christmas day with my family and our jammies and just have lots of cookies and have fun. That's my plan. So I hope you also. So then with that, last week we had SANDAPS, which is the Education Advocacy Committee for San Bernardino County. And I wanted to bring up one bill that was of interest. Right now, it now is a quiet time for the state legislators. They go home, they go back in January, and there'll be a massive influx of bills that are presented in January. However, there were some that were put forward prior to recession. That rhymed. And one of interest is AB 10, pupil instruction, in-person instruction, distance learning. This bill would specify that the requirement for a local educational agency to provide in-person instruction applies when in-person instruction is allowed under state or county health orders. Basically, what this bill is going to say is that if a district moves out of purple into red, or orange or yellow, but red, then this bill would require that the district open for in-person instruction 2 weeks after you move out of the purple color. So if this bill passes and is approved by the governor, then it would take effect March 1st. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of it. It's a big conversation. When I was at the delegate assembly last week we were at CSB, or the week before, whatever, is learning loss, what distance learning is doing in exacerbating the equity issue with our students. How are we going to solve that? How is it going to be supported by federal and state governments? What is that going to look like? Is there going to be money in the governor's budget to address additional intervention and support needs, or are we going to go it alone and just use your own money to knowing that you have some long-term issues with making sure that our students close that gap that was created by distance learning. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of those discussions. I know that we were all hoping for a COVID relief bill, a second one to come from the federal government that is looking grim, which is unfortunate because there is money in any of the proposed relief bills for education. So, or education would be a recipient of what's in those bills. So that is unfortunate. The other thing is that I just want to say it's exciting to be with 5 people here. It's exciting. So anyways, I'm really, really, really happy to have this time with this board and go forward with all the things that we've set in place and that we can start accomplishing in the new board year. That's it.
Thank you, Cindy. Jordan?
Thank you, and I'd like to start by saying congratulations, Madam President. I'm looking forward to retreating back to my corner that I used to be in last year, and I'm definitely looking forward to your leadership for this board in the new year. To jump right up, and also congratulations to Bill here for joining us on our board. I think it'll be very exciting to have 5 board members that are so actively involved in our community on a day-to-day basis. I think this is a very exciting time for our school board. So welcome, and I think you know that all of us here are here to support you, and if we encourage you to reach out to not just board members, but also, bring any constituents in that you want. A big thing for us is making ourselves accessible to the public in our constituency overall. And I think this board's done a great job of making ourselves so accessible. And then just to jump in and count on or get into what Cindy was talking about. We've talked about our state legislators. We've talked about AB 10. Thank you for bringing that up. Those are important things coming up. The governor's proposed budget in January will be another very important thing to watch. And there may be a time when our board asks for your assistance again as a community. This board before has gone to our community with funding concerns and advocacy efforts, and and the board and the community stepped up to support us, sending letters out to our elected officials. Unfortunately, at that time when we asked people, our legislators still voted against what we were advocating for. But maybe this time around will be different. We have a new state assemblyman, we have a new state senator, and with that being said, I think there's great opportunity for this school board and for our community's voices to be heard more by our elected officials. Our new state senator was a school board member herself, Rosa Cholobo, from Kalamazoo Unified. So we may come to you again and ask for your assistance in helping our legislators know and understand the unique challenges being faced by our schools and the financial constraints that go along with it. But definitely to end on a more positive note, I wish everyone a happy, gleeful end to this year. It's been a long year, and I think everyone's eager for 2021 to begin. So with that, I'll hand the reins over. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. And Bill?
Well, first, let me say that it is both an honor and a humbling opportunity to serve on the board, and especially to be serving after the long tenure of Dr. Leslie Gramson. I appreciate her and value what she has done in serving this community. Also, I need to say that I'm probably one of the few board members that has been hollered at on this campus multiple times before ever coming onto this board. Because I have served as a soccer referee and officiated numerous soccer matches at Rim High School, as well as other places too. But so I've had the privilege of being hollered at here. So I thought that would be interesting. And I also want to say Well, happy Hanukkah and a Merry Christmas to everybody as you celebrate, whichever way you celebrate. If you're doing that this year, I encourage you to make sure that you spend your time with family and encourage one another and protect one another. Also, one of the things that really struck me at the last board meeting, and I guess this would be an appropriate moment just to say I really have some concern that I'd like the board to somehow look at in the future, and that is the principal's report that was given last year from the high school, the last meeting. And I just keep thinking of 132 students who have never gotten a D and never failed a class. I served as a guidance counselor at a public high school, 2,000 students in Goodyear, Arizona. And to hear that number and to imagine the percentage of students who have never failed and never gotten a D, and they're getting that right now, is deeply, deeply troubling. Also, because I'm a pastor, I also have concern for the emotional state of our student body. And so the other item that just stood out to me in tearful ways, in fact, Principal Tori was actually fighting back tears as she was reporting on the anxiety and depression level of some students, and a significant number. I realized that students are always vulnerable to that, but it seems like it is a much greater number. And as we move forward and how we plan for the future, I would just say we need to take that into consideration as we make plans for school in the future. And it's just a big concern for me. And again, I'm honored to be here. Most of you, I've supported your elections, had the privilege of being there and watching you. And so I'm in awe of this opportunity. And again, happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas to you all.
Thanks, Bill. Raul?
Hello. So this meeting is usually like an opportunity for reflection, I think, for all of us on the board. Marks my second year. And I remember last year being so excited. We had just gotten done with CSBA and we had all these new ideas. We had an opportunity to spend a lot of time together and bond and have fun. And I just anticipated what that school year would look like. And what we all know, like, it wasn't anything that we thought it would look like or could have expected. And this has been a really, really challenging year for all of us, personally and professionally. And then as board members, I think that we can all say that we have faced challenges that we did not expect at all. As a parent, having students at home and doing distance learning, I'm really seeing not only them, but their friends suffer the consequences of this. So it's almost like a somber moment for me as I reflect back on how hard this year was for us. At the same time, we're very excited, and I think I want to not minimize that Cindy, Jordan, and Bill have all been either reelected or put on board this year. Those are big things. I think Cindy and Jordan were minimizing your guys' accomplishment there. I'm very happy to have it, the future with you guys. I think that our leadership and our teamwork is strong. I think Ms. Murphy and Mr. Gill, we are navigating this the best way that we possibly can. And it's a day by day, moment by moment thing where we continue to adjust and adapt. And because our communication with each other is so strong, because our trust in each other is so strong, it's going as well as it can, all things considered. So I appreciate you guys' friendships and professionalism throughout this. I wish everyone out in the community listening and here happy holidays. I hope next year is different for us, for our teachers, for our students, for our staff, and for everybody in the world. I hope we have a different year that's healthier, that's happier, that comes with more freedom and some normalcy back for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie, and you're laughing. Now I'll go. I don't have much to say. I have a couple of notes that are written down. 4 of us I know participated or attended virtually the CSBA, California School Board Association's annual conference. Last year we were able to do it in person. This year we attended virtually, and I thought it was fantastic. And there was one session in particular that I found to be very, very relevant that I look forward to talking about next month. One thing that I was pleased that it talked about was the D's and F's. So I'll be sharing that information next month, but I might pass on some information in the next couple of days in terms of what this session had to say. One of the things I was curious about that I wanted to follow up on too is, since all of the sessions were recorded, if we have a certain kind of CSBA license, we can actually attend those sessions even after the conference. So it would be, and the handouts are still available, but as far as they actually taped all of the sessions, not the keynote speakers, so you can't see Leslie Odom Jr. again. But at the same time, that might be really helpful. And then some other notes that I wrote down, my continued gratitude toward for our staff for continuing to rise to the occasion. These challenging times, I know all of us really appreciate the extraordinary effort from our bus drivers doing an amazing amount of painting in our campus is beautiful. Our teachers are doing everything they humanly possible so that their students feel loved while they learn. These are not ideal situations. And every single individual that's associated with our urban district is trying to do whatever they can to get through this the best possible way. I appreciate it. So one of the things that is happening this week are senior interviews, which is a process that our high school seniors who are not involved with AP put together, usually just a rocky portfolio, get letters of recommendation, make indications of what they anticipate life will be like as they move forward, trying to plan for that. And one of the steps is interviewing with various community members. Usually that happens on campus. We're doing it virtually this year. I'll be involved tomorrow morning. I'm really looking forward to it. It would be lovely if we were able to do that in person. But Jessica Erlinger is still coordinating to make it possible so that our seniors are able to have this experience. So I appreciate that effort that she's put in, and I'm sure the students will still find it to be beneficial. That's all I have written down here. So I will, so with that, I do wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, wonderful and much better new year. Hoping vaccinations are proving to be effective in the coming months. We continue to see improvement. Right now, things are not looking too great. We are going to get past them here. So let me move on. My glasses on. Okay, so 10.2, superintendent.
I'm going to keep my report this evening short. I want to thank everyone for their condolences and flowers on the passing of my mother last week. I'd like to thank Cabinet for covering for me. I'd like to talk about an email that I sent to employees and to families today, just to remind you to read them. They are the updates from the county about our current COVID data in San Bernardino County, along with the CIF allowable sports. They have come up with a tiered system by color for CIF, and I encourage you to look at those, though it is not perhaps the outcome we all wished for our students, much like this school year, because we want our students to participate in sports and those things that keep them engaged. at least it is an answer to looking at how we can do that safely when we start to change colors. So I sent that information out to everyone. I just want to say happy holidays and thank you for all that you're doing. I know that this break is much anticipated by our employees and by our students. We don't have the snow we had last year, but I know that everyone is looking forward to 2 weeks and be safe with your families and COVID free. So limit your gatherings and do those things when you can, but wish you a wonderful time with your families as it's well deserved.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have Anthony on board for, okay. So temporary student representative report.
Camera out the way. All right, December 15th, 2020 student report. We can go next slide. We'll start off with LAE, December board update. Classified and certified staff continue to move along here at LAE, supporting students, families, and one another. As we head into the holiday break, we are showing daily spirit during our Fa La 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 week. As this will be virtual, I'm sure we'll miss seeing all of those kiddos and staff showing off their green, red sparkles and PJs. We continue to beautify LAE. Our office receives a painting update of a clean white and accent walls of a dusty blue. Our plan is to paint the health room once we return January 4th. We welcomed our new librarian, Brianna Belkin. She will be working collaboratively with our other amazing district librarians who are also helpful. And we have CHE next. Oh, VOE, my bad. Into the holiday break here at VOE. Our teachers have found even more ways to provide lessons, not only packed with content, but we put some fun in them too. We added lots of our new friends to the hallways, a special thanks to Devon. The ladies in the office added so much needed holiday cheer to the office. Our second month of attendance awards headed home to our winners. Congratulations. We are doing some sprucing up in the cafeteria with the help of the bus drivers, thanks to Jen Kwell and her staff. We're also doing some spirit days this week. Thursday is PJ Day, my favorite. Our awesome cafeteria staff is gearing up for tomorrow. 10 breakfasts and 10 lunches in every bag. The question is, will we get to our record of 445 bags? As we prepare for the holidays at the end of the departure of 2020, we are here at VOE want to wish everyone a safe and happy holidays. See you all next year, VOE. CHE Holiday Week. CHE celebrates Christmas and other winter holidays with a daily theme. The cafeteria gets a new painted facelift to match the outside. Food distribution continues, bags shown. We deal with our first student and employee shared with LAE cases of COVID-19. And PH December board update. I believe a little bit of the top of it's cut off, so I'll just read what's right under here. 98 sessions and 35 essays reviewed. Math and English are the classes students request assistance with the most. Thursdays are the day with the highest usage each week. That's the domain link. New history adoption. Our new history adoption curriculum has been delivered to MPH. We are excited to begin implementation second semester. Attendance. Attendance is at 93% with perfect attendance many days this past week for one of our 6th grade teams. Great job, students, in Mr. Bear, Mrs. West, and Miss Miller's classes. MPH campus update and beautification continues. New rain gutters installed across campus. The next phase of painting in the cafeteria has begun, and plans for paint in the gym hallway, office, and other updates in the works. MPH, RHS, and MHS high schools, secondary school San Bernardino, County Sheriff's Department parent night. presentation on trends among the youth, especially in increasingly digital world, with Public Affairs Representative Mr. Clark Morrow. This event was held via Zoom on December 10th, 2020. For a copy of the slides presentation, please reach out to Mrs. Whiteside via email. Mr. Morrow specifically mentioned the great service around the world school district is doing for their students. And I believe some of that was also cut off on the bottom. You can go next slide, yeah. Eagle highlights for Mountain High School for December. Finishing up the third grading period of the year and all OSSIWare electives for the semester. Fifth-year students are graduating. We are hoping to have our first regular graduate of the year in February. Preparing 6 weeks cycle interventions, including mandatory study hall during next grading period. Several of our students will be receiving gifts from a local group that sponsors families for the holidays. Intake meeting and student, parent, teacher, counselor, admin meetings continue to take place over Zoom. And we recently co-sponsored a SBCSO parent night with MPH and RHS. And Mountain Family Counseling is hosting a parent night tomorrow that we have advertised in Parent Link and our monthly newsletter. District Home Choice School Program. We are back at full capacity of 108 students, but the teachers are willing to take overages, so we will be accepting more students into the program this week as the district will allow due to the continued wait list and the new demand that comes in daily. Our teachers have been receiving PD from our elementary TOSA, Claire Tilson, who is now working with them on administering IABs or checkpoint assessments. Mountain Sunrise Rotary made 24 desks from wood. We have distributed them to HC families. 95% of our families are continuing with the program for the next trimester and are overwhelmingly happy with the program. And we will be sending out a survey to families to see what we can improve on as we begin the second semester. Our REM High School update, December 15th. Paper.co is off to a great start. We have had 93 essays reviewed and 265 tutoring sessions in the last month. We are planning on another paper parent night for January 27th. RHS update, Grinch Drive-In Night. Leadership successfully hosted the Drive-In Movie Night last Friday. Special shout out to Ms. Markovich, Ms. and Mr. Nicholas, and Mrs. Phillips for planning this successful, fun, and safe event. Thank you, Mrs. McMurphy, for the support. Yeah, some family and I went to that the other day. It was very enjoyable. RHS General update. Leadership planned and hosted a virtual holiday scavenger hunt on Padlet for the whole school body. RHS Spirit Days are this week. Students are asked to show their spirit on social media and tags RHS. RHS passed out academic awards, including academic letters and bars last month. An attendance celebration is being planned for January for students with 95% attendance or better during fall semester. PTSA is helping with Student Spotlight. Mountain News will be starting Student Athlete Spotlight in place of sports articles until sports can resume. In response to parent, student, and staff feedback, RHS teachers collaborated on creating a new bell schedule to optimize time with students next semester. And RHS is working on finishing our site COVID-19 handbook. Thank you, everyone. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Anthony.
Happy holidays.
Reports and presentation, 11.0, reports and presentations, 11.1, finance, facilities, budget and enrollment report, and we have our own CDF.
Thank you for having me tonight. And am I clear enough with my mask on and the microphone? Okay, thank you. All right, well, on your board agenda tonight is adoption of our first interim financial report. And so I'm going to talk a little bit just about that report. I know we had uploaded the report to you, so if you wanted to follow along on the PowerPoint presentation, it's uploaded in your board folder, although we have it here for you. And then I also included in the what we uploaded for you is a narrative of, there's a PDF version a narrative of what our assumptions are that go into building our financial statement and our multi-year projections. I'm not going to go over that document. It's there for your reference. We've published snapshots of some of this data too in like the one pager. So it just is your information, especially kind of a budget 101, what makes up classified salaries, for instance, what type of services would be in the, you know, in the certificated service line. So, you know, at your leisure, you can take a look at that. We will also post it online for my whole reports get posted under our business page. So we'll do that probably over the break. We'll come in for a little bit. So I wanted to just start. Oh, and passed out a little more detailed multi-year projection report. I have a summary in the PowerPoint. So that's just a little bit more detail on each of the next 5 years. Let's see. I know that would help. Thank you. Yes, I need to turn it on. Okay, so what is the purpose of our report? We review data related to our enrollment, our attendance. We report actual activity through October 31st, and then projected activity through June 30th for the current year and 2 subsequent years. We have various financial assumptions, which many I outlined in the narrative for you, and a revised budget update. By ed code, we have to have this report board approved by December 15th, which is why we have a meeting on a Tuesday tonight. I think there were some other reasons with the election, but we, you know, by the 15th of December, we have to have board action on this report. And the board has to certify our financial position. So we are self-certifying a positive financial report. Okay, there are 3 types of certifications. This is review for some of you. We have a positive, a qualified, and a negative. A positive is that we project we can meet our financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years. Qualified, we may not. A negative is we will not. So meet the first or second year of their obligations. So we usually have an idea if we're going to be qualified when we start revising the budget when we're closing the books, because then the state had adopted, you know, since they would have since adopted their final state budget. So you wouldn't have heard if we were qualified for the first time tonight. We would have started to have an idea, you know, July and August as we were revising the budget based on the state's enacted budget. Okay, there's some acronyms page for you. If some of you may or may not. We tend to forget, I think, when we're talking up here, because they're just so natural for us. What does an MPP stand for? ADA. ADA is different depending on what occupation you may or what subject matter you're talking about. So, and CBEDS, LCFF. So it's there for your reference. Okay, and of course, we work mostly in District Goal 6, Budget, Infrastructure, and Resources in my department, and then we prioritize and allocate our resources to support our goals. Okay. Can't really see it from a distance there, but the next slide is just a snapshot of our current enrollment. And our current enrollment as of month 4 is 2,928. We're just one student less than we were the prior month. And you can see we are, you know, we did jump a little bit higher from even the month before that. But a picture's worth 1,000 words, definitely, when you're looking at declining enrollment. And we did come into this year. We think a lot of reasons are like pandemic related, that our projected enrollment is far lower. Our actual enrollment is far lower than we projected last January, February, and March. So it'll be interesting on, you know, this is probably the most unsettled I've felt with what will our enrollment be. I think as a district, even before I was in my position, I think we've done a really good job on our enrollment projections because we've been in declining enrollment for so many years. I think the past 20 years, we've been in declining enrollment. So, and we've been able to nail it down, sometimes to the students. And this is the first year that I feel I can really say, I don't know, we don't have that confidence this year on will our enrollment spring back, or will families, as they get pushed out of LA County, Orange County, and find cheaper housing, more east, will we grow? So it's really, I think our saying has been flexibility and patience during we'll have to, as the enrollment and planning goes, we'll also have to, just be prepared for anything at this point. Okay, so part of the multi-year projections and our certification is looking at enrollment and ADA. Although we've been held harmless by our governor and not counting ADA for apportionment purposes, we are counting ADA in the future year for funding purposes. So we do have to project our enrollment. We revised these projections based on the lower actual enrollment this year. So we, how we look at enrollment, we take all of our students and when we look at, let's say 21, 22, our kindergartners become our first graders, our sixth graders become our seventh graders, our eighth graders become our ninth graders. And then, Todd and I sit down a lot together and say, okay, this is, if everybody stayed, this is what the high school looks like. This is what, then, because it also determines our staffing, of course, because we have staffing ratios. And then, how many, what does elementaries look like? Sometimes there's a big year that you can kind of see it traveling through the different years. We call it that bubble year. And then a lot of times too, we have had larger classes graduate and then smaller classes coming in. So by default, sometimes even if people weren't leaving our mountain, we would on the natural have declining enrollment for the low birth rates and low kindergarten rates. With the exception of last year, we had one of the highest kindergarten rates, and this year we were back down to one of the lower kindergarten rates. So I think statewide, what I'm hearing in my meetings is that there are families who just didn't elect not to put their kindergartners in school since it's not mandated. We'll see how that is if we see a larger than expected first grade enrollment next year. So I don't know if that's happened in our mountains or not. So we, on top of looking at enrollment for staffing, we also need enrollment to calculate our future year's revenue. So we need, because enrollment yields ADA for students coming to school, and then we can calculate our next 2 to 5 years revenue based on what we projected ADA. We will revise this almost every time we report to you because we're constantly updating our information, looking to see, how we are, if we're off from our projections, new data that's coming in. The county looks at this to help us be prepared for large, kind of cliffs of revenue, and if we projected wisely, if we are reasonably. So they put a reasonable test to it when they evaluate our numbers. Okay, so even though this year we're not collecting ADA for money purposes, we're collecting it for compliance and compulsory education purposes, we do need to talk about attendance. I think we need to keep it in the conversation, but looking ahead for next year, planning, making sure our parents and our principals and our community understands, what in a typical year, what each day would bring to us per student. So when you miss that day to go to Disneyland, what did that do to the district's pocketbook? And we like to say it's not all about the money, but with money we can service the students. So, on average, This is, will change every year. And the actual ADA does not include the LCFF for the transportation add-on because it's just what a student would earn for us. Roughly $50 a day. You see $47.14, but that also could change based on, with LCFF, different grade levels and different demographics earn a different amount of money per day. So this is an average, of course. Okay, and because we usually talk about Strive for 95, our attendance campaign, and we're pushing that attendance in Saturday school to get that number higher for apportionment reasons. We're not doing that this year, but I think like I said, we keep this in the conversation as we gear up for next year on what each increment of 0.5% yields in higher revenue. So if we could, at average, if we're at 93.72% attendance and we can get up to 95, that's almost $400,000 that, for revenue that would generate for our district. Okay, really hard to see up on the screen there, but you also have it on your PowerPoint. This is just a summary of every year's LCFF revenue. It's actual data from 2013-14 through this current year, 2020-21, because we know what our ADA is. It was held harmless. So we're able to calculate it for this year. We're actually able to calculate it for next year also, with the exception of what our unduplicated count percent will be. So that would be the varying factor. But you can see, because of the zero COLA environment that we're in right now, and then, when you're held harmless for revenue, we were already being funded on prior year guarantee. So we're funded on prior year guarantee this year. We would have been with or without the governor's executive order. Next year, prior year guarantee is this year. So we're that helped a district like ours. And it's that third year, you catch up, you settle up on that prior year guarantee, because then we will be truly funded on 2021-22's ADA. So with enrollment declining and then our ADA, we feel it in 2 years, because we're held harmless. And then, they talk about it if you're going to different meetings or conferences, the cliff that districts are facing. So you see in 2022-23, without any other changes that the state's making, but we will talk about, a little bit about this. My budget assumptions are based on current state budget information, and we know that January 15th, the governor is going to give an updated proposal, and even information, and I've updated you. Yeah, because you were on board. But information that we're hearing last week and this week is already a lot different than we were hearing a month ago. So we were hearing a lot of doom and gloom 30 days ago. To be prepared, watch out. January is going to be really, really tough. It's going to be, this horrific news for school districts. They're backpedaling on that right now, and they're starting to say, well, maybe there'll be some one-time money. Let's look at what COLA environments will be in. So they're already starting to say that we're going to expect, we might not hear great news in January, kind of jump into another part of the presentation, but it doesn't seem like it's the doom and gloom we were warned about a month ago.
But Jimmy, what I'm hearing is that from the LAO to expect very slow growth in Prop 98.
Yes.
And basically flat zero COLA environment. If we do get COLA, it won't cover our expenses.
No.
So it's basically a cut, if you want to call it.
I mean, it's better
It's
than the
better,
other
but
COLA.
I'm just saying is that,
But any of their COLAs, and I have a slide on this, doesn't cover, the automatic expenses we see in health and welfare, STRS, PERS, utilities, wear and tear, second column. So even the highest funded COLA in the past 5 years hasn't funded the, a lot of the costs that we have no control over.
but what's concerning was the whole slow growth in Prop 98. That was concerning to hear.
So what it kind of comes down to is that there still needs to be a lot of pressure, put on the governor and the state to continue, moving in the direction that we're currently seeing, doom and gloom to, well, maybe walking it back a little bit. There still needs to be that continued pressure. And then after, no matter what his budget is, it still needs to be advocacy until they revise too, is what it sounds like.
Yes, and what I'm hearing, and that's from a meeting last Friday, is that there is money to probably fund us higher than they will. So knowing that is a little bit disappointing.
Another thing to kind of think about is if CSBA goes for full and fair funding in 2022, that could also affect things.
Some of the sessions I attended for the CSBA was they were talking about a budget, what's happening at the state level. And maybe you can help me to understand, they're saying that with the governor's revision they did in the summer for 10% cut in various cuts, and the numbers coming in better than expected, and what they're seeing now, that where they were saying there wasn't going to be a situation, right? That's created a Prop 98 situation potentially. Is that anything that you're hearing about?
You're saying, did cuts create a Prop 98?
Because-
Lowering Prop 98?
Because they had lower expectations, they revised numbers to say that revenues are going to be significantly lower.
So as revenues are materialized each month and then at the quarter, they recalculate the Prop 98 base that's due to schools. So they're using the words windfall, although it's just
It's not.
property, state income taxes are just coming in higher, sales taxes are coming in higher, so capital gains taxes are coming in higher. So they're coming in higher than they're projected. It's not a one-time windfall for, some outside force. So they would need to, they recalibrate what Prop 98 and then our percentage share on that. But the pressure is going to be is during the talks of 10% across the board cuts was that the governor had said, well, we'll fund above the Prop 98 and we'll promise instead of Prop 98 becoming, it's become really a ceiling and it's really what's supposed to be a floor. And so they had said, what, a 2% increase the schools and then that becomes ongoing to us. The fear is because money is coming in higher than they projected, the thought is they'll say, oh, well, now we don't have to fund you more because we didn't cut you like we said we would. But that wasn't the purpose. And so that's where some of the pressure will have to be also, because they promised to stop looking at it as a ceiling. And what will they do with that? It could have been some of that conversation that you heard.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a quick little chart on components of our revenues in the general fund, unrestricted and restricted. Look at the percentages later and give me an email if you have any questions. So right now, this is the current PERS and STRS rate. And you can kind of see as part of the governor's package was some built-in relief on the STRS side. Well, so on the, what year am I on? Okay, 2021 and 21-22, you can see that we got some relief from the STRS rate built into the governor's package. Well, they kind of settle up. So it's really a one-time, not really, yes, we'll take what we can get, but we have to then jump right back up to make up that difference for the STRS in total for their investments and their pot of money up there. So in 22-23, that budget adjustment, instead of having a gradual increase year over year, we have some budgetary relief and then a one-time jump back up to the percent that it was going to be at 18.4. And PERS has a little bit more flexibility amongst their own governance to increase the rates than STRS does. And so their projected highest rate in 23-24 would be 27.3. So that's 27% of every payroll dollar is just to pay that dollar amount. Then you have Social Security, Medicare, unemployment, workers' compensation out of that. So then typically what you'll see is anywhere from 30 up to now in the future years, 36, 38% of every payroll dollar has statutory rates on it that are out of our control. So, and that's one of the things Cindy was alluding to. Even if we were to get a COLA, the COLA is eaten up almost instantly in some of these other areas. The next slide is just kind of an overall picture of our general fund budget and what makes each category. You can look at that, and if you have any questions, just feel free to give me a call. And then the next few slides is just a multi-year projection. So the next 3 pages are the first page of this document that I gave you here. Okay, a little more in summary form. But you can also, I know it's hard to see at a distance, you can see like what percentage of our budget is paid for retiree costs. What percentage is classified salaries? What percentage is health benefits? And in other categories such as services and supplies, books and supplies. And highlighted in yellow is the ending fund balances for each current and subsequent year. So, and those tie into this report just a little bit. This report here doesn't fare very well on the PowerPoint. To be honest, it just comes up with teeny. So, yes, I think this is important because it's relevant as of today, and that's what the county will judge us on too as they review our financials. But also, we already know come January 15th, we will have a very, very different subsequent year, year 2 and year 3 that we're looking at. So we've talked, and we don't really want to react too much to this document as it stands now, because we're hearing that the governor is going to make a lot of changes than what we knew about a month ago. Okay, so just in we've really touched on probably all of these already, but what is an assumption when we're talking about building a multi-year projection? And that's step and column increases, that's updated revenue, that's updating our projections, reducing our budget in areas where we have savings. We have health and welfare increases budgeted at 5%. We have increases in STRS and PERS and step and column for our bargaining units. Just a quick rundown on what are our reserves made up of. So, we have to maintain a 3% minimum reserve for unforeseen circumstances. And then we also have some funds set aside in other reserves that we kind of talked about a little bit, may come into play this year or next year, depending on what facility dollars come in, whether we decide to go out for another bond or not in 2022. But we do have, our prior deferred maintenance fund 14 sweep plus our forest revenue set aside. We thought we were going to have a match for our Measure W out of the general fund, and we didn't need it. So this construction just went really well. So we had some successes there. And then we have our insurance proceeds from, we had a claim at Grandview, which we kind of got bought out of the claim. And so we fixed it only to a point, and then we decided, let's hold on to the cash in case we need it. And then that we may want to allocate that to facility projects, depending on, what we may do as a district and looking at long-term facility planning. Because there really isn't, unless we go out for another bond, there isn't any money coming in from the state on any facility dollars. So that's why we just kind of safeguarded some of those funds. Okey-doke. And our next step is we just continue to monitor our enrollment. We look forward to the governor's budget on the 15th. We, revise our data as needed as changes come about, and continue our collaboration efforts with employees and at the bargaining table and our multiple stakeholders. And does anyone have any questions?
No, Assembly Member Patrick O'Donnell, he introduced AB 75, which is another K-14 school facility bond. So we'll see, because then that will provide the bond.
Well, a lot of times with those bonds too, we may need a local matching component.
Right, exactly,
So,
exactly. But it failed at the last ballot, so we'll see what happens this time. Oh, thank you. I was spacing out and thinking about.
thank you. I was making sure that before I walk away, there's not another question.
Thank you.
Yeah, another question that come up, related to this somewhat, is Zaham is the late start bill. Oh, let me tell you about that. I totally forgot to do that in my report, and then I was gonna do it in our governance thing and sneak it in there. So I asked at the delegate assembly, Dennis Mayer, who's the CSBA legislator, head of the legislative office, about the late start bill, and I stumped him. He did not know what the status was, because I asked if it is going to be delayed further, have they done anything on cleanup, language, anything. He didn't know.
Like the government rule status.
Exactly. And then so he's supposed to get back to me. Then I brought it up in Sandbox last week to capital advisors, Kevin Gordon and Jerry Shelton. And I said, this is what Dennis said. And it's like crickets. Apparently nothing's going on, but we're planning our budgets. And that's a huge impact for some districts like ours. And is there anything going on? Kevin and Jerry didn't know because nothing is being done right now, and very minimal is. So they're going to check the status, but basically then I was asked to go ahead and forward that wonderful memo document that you and all those supporting documents that you write up to capital advisors and to the county office again, but sending them up to and Nikki Dietmar, our CSBA piece, I sent those to her as well. So here's an interesting take. Jerry Shelton said that maybe we could entertain both as CSBA but as a district, is instead of trying to get us pigeonholed and defined as rural, which only buys us time before we implement this, before we have to implement the start bill, that maybe what we could do is to basically never have to implement it by coming up with our own resolution, declaring that we are defining ourselves as rural based upon what is in your memo draft and E-rate and all of that, where we are, where we get the bump for being designated rural, and then we define ourselves as rural. And therefore, we are excluding ourselves from the implementation. He said, so maybe you want it loosey-goosey. And so Karen Gray, our District 16 director, was like, this is a great conversation because she's from Silver Valley. And so the whole idea is maybe CSBA could take up this banner and create a resolution for districts to a template for us to use, to vote on, to define ourselves as rural. It's not, Karen's all excited because she's like, ooh, we're gonna be rebels. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that, you know? So anyways, I'm just letting you know, there's been no movement, there's been no conversation, there's nothing going on with that bill. It's exactly where it was prior to the pandemic. Just letting you know.
Now, Cindy, if you wouldn't mind just elaborating a little bit, from my understanding, being defined as rural only buys you time for implementation.
Right.
What is the difference between someone else defining us rural and delaying the implementation versus us saying we're rural and then never implementing?
I don't understand all the semantics, but at this time, it had to go into a deeper conversation that we were running out of time in Sandbox for, plus I was talking the time. And so, but basically, the only way that you would have to worry about, you can choose not to follow it no matter what. Your district can choose not to follow it. You would only get in trouble if a parent decided to take you to court over it and say, you didn't do the late start bill, you did not push back high school time and middle school, but our middle school is already pushed back. And then we could say, well, we define ourselves as rural and here's our proof, and that's why we didn't implement it. So
It would be a
finer,
safe side.
yeah, if the finer details of that rebel action need to kind of be worked out, but that was something that was kind of thrown out there by Jerry Shelton from Popular Advisors about if this is just agony in terms of getting conversation with Senator Portantino to do his job and clean up the bill language.
I think it's an important discussion to have at that level because that was one of the conditions or expectations of all the legislators voting for it. The assumption that we will clean up this language right after it's been quite a while.
No, just the huge budget impact that's associated with it, we're not including that right now.
I know it's a little tangential, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's,
So-
but it's important in terms of our planning.
So those documents now reside with Popular Advisors as well as up at CSBA, Legend Office.
So at this point, right now, it's kind of not being discussed at the state level. Holding down.
It's in a holding pattern.
Do we know how Lady feels about it?
I'm sorry,
Senator Lady, do we know how she feels about it?
she voted against it.
Right. I guess the newest notion that's come up from Capital Advisors,
No.
or it hasn't been discussed.
No,
yet.
it hasn't been. This is whole new rebel.
Yeah.
And none of the costs have been budgeted because we felt it was fruitless to even go there.
Right, we
Because
would
we'll
just,
fight it
we would
tooth and
have,
nail.
we would have, if we don't buy buses and don't do it, all of that, but we push the, start times no matter, I mean, there's multiple suggestions and times that we have that have been kind of bandied about, but the minimum cost for us to change is like 100, it's probably more because it's been a couple of years, but at the time was just doing all that work was over $134,000. And
And
then,
have been completely blowing up
right,
our
and
programs.
blowing up the entire, all the start times, plus possible impact on sports
Yeah.
and field trips
Seven
and
periods.
zero period, blah, 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 blah. So,
Far-reaching implications.
so there's a lot of implications, but the buses, if we buy them at that time, so we, over $3.2 million of one-time money, and then the ongoing costs of a double bus driver fee.
I wonder,
There's no money in this bill, and there's no transportation COLA. So,
I wonder if there's any other benefits or possible implications to defining ourselves as rural outside the lakefront.
well, that's why parents, oh, true, that's why the parent was thinking that districts like ours in our county should have that meeting and figure that out. And start
Right.
taking that
Because I'm
into
sure
account.
there's further implications,
Right,
positive or negative.
Exactly.
Could be figured out.
no, I thought that was a novel concept there, that you threw out and just went, think about that. Okay.
Everything is considered rebel.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you, Jen.
It added to the discussion, yeah, absolutely. Moving on to this, yes, it's on 11.2, setting direction, review the 2021 schedule for regular board meetings, workshops, and board retreat. Open that up for discussion. Oops.
It's in your board folder.
I'm actually on board tonight. After I stopped being so cold, my brain's like finally on schedule.
Clicking.
Yeah, that was crazy. Okay, so, for January, I know last year in January, what we did is we reported out in just our board reports, our regular board reports, the CSBA. We just went through and said, this is what I intended, this was what it was about, so that we can actually have a conversation, because I had questions on a couple of people's presentations. I was thinking that we could, under reports, it's a standing practice that in January that we have CSBA report out, and we put it under reports, because then all of us can report out, but if we have questions or want to elaborate on something, we're able to do that under reports, whereas if we do it under our board reports, we can only report out. There can be no conversation. So then that way we don't have to add a workshop, but if we can put it as a standard practice, CSBA report out.
Okay.
With that, are you guys good with that? I just would like to have a conversation, because I know
Yes.
Jen and I took one, she took a session the same as I did, and it's fascinating. And we're not going to talk about it, but I'm just going to say is that that promotes a lot of discussion in that one. And I just would like to be able to ask lots of questions of what you guys did.
100%.
That sounds good.
And then, look, I'm just going to go ahead. You guys can jump in, but I'm going to talk about. Here, let's see. This is the at the glance. It's not the big thing. Okay. So the other thing is that in Sandbox, one of the strategic actions that we're trying to take is ultimately to make San Bernardino County a bigger player in the education up at the state level. It's not just about LA Unified or San Diego Unified or Oakland Unified, it's about San Bernardino County. And I think that we, in having this conversation with Sandbox, the whole point is that it's to expand the advocacy out so that all board members are active participants in the advocacy work. And with that is working with capital advisors, we're going to condense the Sandbox discussions, including the support, our bill support or not support, into these talking points, so that if we go out to Lake Arrowhead MAC meetings, we can, I could say, hey, guess what? This is a bill that like this AB 10 that's out in that everybody should be aware of, because this will potentially impact the community as well as the school district. And part of that Sandab's direction is also for us to superintendents and boards to consider possibly adding as a standing board agenda item, legislative report. And what was given, Ron Williams from Victor Valley reported out, is that on their board agenda, they have it standing, and literally the Sandab's bill report is just, this is what we received. This is what the supporting documents in Victor Valley is, and it's just cut and pasting Sandbox. There's no work, it's just cut and paste, and that's the legislative report. But under that.
So you're asking for that to be added to the governance calendar, it's not changing the item we're on now, the calendar.
Right.
So we can add that to 11.
Right, but on the 11th, like, on the governance calendar, having a monthly stand.
Yeah, that's 11.3.
Yeah, governance calendar.
Oh, shoot, what are we on?
11.2.
Oh, dang. You guys are looking at me like, what are you talking about?
A little bit.
Well, apparently I just need my glasses. I jumped to the wrong document.
You're excited for it. I like
I'm
it.
excited for it, darn it. Okay, well, never mind. Board meetings are awesome.
Great schedule.
Great schedule, great work, you guys. 2 thumbs way up on that.
Can you picture him getting the shirt?
Oh, dear. I will-
I am like super bummed. Why didn't you stop me? I was on the roll though, huh?
You were,
I was like,
well, now we've already heard it, so when we get there, we'll just
Guys,
say, yes,
yes.
yes.
Bill
Sounds great.
Bill's like, wow. He's looking at me like it's from Morris out of my head. Like, who are you? What are you talking about? My computer's
So
so-
is this calendar,
You're
Yes.
super awesome, Mrs. Murphy.
Look at all
Thank you
that.
so
Thank
much
you,
for all the
Connie.
hard work.
that's, thank you, Connie.
Thank Connie. We're on the board meeting.
Yes. we
You could have stopped me. You could have said,
So we did keep a retreat in there. We had our first one last summer, so we added that for this upcoming summer. So following the same format, I think that was a successful event. And we wanted to see if we could make that a condition versus a standalone.
are. Yes, please. And once we hopefully no longer have to follow social distancing
But then we'll
protocols.
change those.
It's on the.
We'll just, we'll bring it as an addendum to going back to sites and doing our normal events.
Do we still anticipate to, well, we can talk about it at that point, but, since we have all the equipment, do we still anticipate to stream no matter what format we have?
We haven't talked about that,
Yeah.
but we can.
So the locations can change on this.
Yes, this schedule was created, locations were created totally with the pandemic in mind and under current regulations.
Traditionally, we bounce around every school site.
Right.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Which is all of our preferences.
Yes.
Good scene for us and do fun things.
Okay, these are fewer workshops too.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other, okay, so
we can always, if we feel the need for a workshop, we can always, debate that on future agenda items.
It's always to add them to our governance calendar too. if
Because
we
I
find
have
it's
to talk
efficient.
about
Next week.
Yeah.
11.3.
okay, are you guys ready to vote on this? So
Is the vote required on this?
No,
okay, then shall we move on to 11.3?
Correct.
We're going to review the 2021 governance calendar.
Let's add what Cindy suggested.
the legislative
I think we should.
report.
Yeah,
Monday.
I'm sorry. And then the standing January CSBA report out. I just think that I would like to talk about stuff with you guys rather than just,
I love it.
sorry.
No, I agree.
Okay, we can add those.
I like that you have the K-12 math report, K-12 English report.
I wonder if it wouldn't be more prudent, knowing how foreseeable some of our issues are, particularly surrounding mental health, with grades, dropping in, if we wouldn't be prudent to add something more geared towards that for this governance calendar year coming up. Just to incorporate it a little bit more. Now that we know distance learning has also been a thing, we don't know how long it'll continue for necessarily, but maybe a technology update, sooner than I think our technology updates in November or so. Yeah, November, maybe we could add one in or move the current technology update to be a little sooner in the school year, or before the end of this current school year possibly, or maybe at the end of the school year, so that we can get an idea before the new school year starts.
When you say technology update, are you also then talking about the evaluating part of distance learning?
That's typically not in the technology updates.
Yeah, distance learning is new. So it's never been in our government calendar before. But we did add, technology update, I think last, year, right? Or it was,
We've always had a technology update. Mine has always been mine.
We haven't, and I'm curious how long after school ends, once Mark gets technology back and looks at everything and then knows what
That's why
we
we
need
do
to
that
have for the
November.
next year.
Well,
That's why
Michael-
it's a little bit later on. I think it might be premature to do it right at the end of the school year when he doesn't even know what he's looking at yet.
perhaps before the new school year starts or after summer or something, because November, we're already into the school year. So, we're going to be making an effort to collect all of our technology at the end of this current school year, and then making preparations for the start and distribution and all of that. It might be prudent. It doesn't have to be in our governance calendar. Perhaps it could be just an update in a Friday update. But it might be.
I think that might be better because probably, just my opinion is like while he's doing all of that, to then put together a report for us and like add something to
May
his
and June
plate.
are definitely defined with big things.
Yeah,
Yes.
Budget evaluations,
yeah.
Yeah.
LCAP.
Just because I think it's important for us to know where we're going, especially because we've got so much new technology. I don't know that our normal procedures are going to fit, what we currently are doing. Because it's just going to be, the effort to retrieve all of the stuff is going to be much more massive than it's been in prior years. And then the distribution and planning of that distribution it might look different as well if we're not in distance learning. And those might be new procedures. This school year, we've operated essentially on the fly for all of this. I just feel it's important to kind of keep that planning in the loop. Like I said, it doesn't need to be part of our governance calendar. Perhaps it could be a Friday update or something. And then another thing would just be, again, bringing up mental health. I know we have Kelvin data on there, and we've got, maybe perhaps placing a little bit more of an emphasis on it.
So we're
So,
talking about having a care solace, also, really, along with climate culture, not just Calvin. Seeing if we might be able to start getting, maybe just through updates, but if it makes sense to have it in the calendar in terms of mental health.
I'm amenable to anything, but I wanted to at least discuss it, now that we have the governance calendar in front of us. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, adding a little bit of care solace data might be interesting, or at least an area, an opportunity for us as a board to discuss it. Maybe we get the Friday update, then we talk about it at a board meeting.
Well, there's always would fall under climate and culture, right, with Kelvin in February.
Yeah, I think we would.
Or possibly when things open up more, see if maybe they can speak to us, if that makes sense too. So we haven't met with them.
So the biggest change to distance learning we feel also revealing is the social emotional learning and mental health. And we only touch base on climate and culture with Kelvin data once in the entire school year. And nowhere else except for possibly setting direction in our board retreat and LCAP would be social emotional learning. Doesn't seem like we touch it too often.
We can add that to a topic of a board retreat in July.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at the duties of each department and each board meeting
Right.
month. And, Heather's very impacted on the governance calendar along with business. So what about at the board retreat, add that as a topic?
I think it would make sense because it's a predictable thing that we're going to have to be addressing and dealing with for the next, 3 to 5 years. We know that this pandemic is going to have a lasting scar on our student body. I think Cindy's right, perhaps touching it more than once a year would be good. If that's in the board, that's great.
And possibly putting yourself in the technology, we do the same then.
Yeah.
And so, Heather, in the climate and culture report in Kelvin, Can we expand that discussion a little bit more to include a care solace update and to social emotional learning, whether it's PD opportunities for our staff that are being set up either via First Sight or just expand that a little bit to go into the SEL and mental health aspects.
More just a social emotional learning or
Yeah.
versus just health and specific.
Yeah.
But
So
actually, you're looking at an evaluation tool too, facilitating safe and positive
Right.
employment and the facets of that.
And maybe Ds and Fs as well.
And what?
Ds and Fs.
So if we could just expand that to be an all-encompassing SEL mental health discussion, that would be awesome. And then I know that self-reporting, students reaching out to teachers or administration or their friends with issues, but how are we capturing a picture of where our students are in distress? That's a whole nebulous, how do we collect that kind of information if they're not actually reaching out to us? Because I know that some students don't, a lot of students don't.
It's time to be careful of that detail because of privacy, because you're dealing with some social emotional issues.
Right. Right.
That's a sensitive.
But
But generally speaking, there's
just some
trends that we're seeing.
trends, that's a good idea, trends.
So can I repeat back the things we got in so that I get them, and I work on getting them typed correctly? So legislative report monthly, CSBA report added to January, February expanding the climate and culture to SEL and Care Solace with Kelvin. A technology update via email sometime in the spring. Or we have board retreat, adding social emotional learnings and technology. That's what I have in my notes.
Jordan, would you be okay with the technology update? Retreat right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Is that, what, for the work trip, part of that is, because we got to this point where we're 1-1 and we have smart boards in every classroom. So now the challenge is going to be sustainability.
Yeah.
How do we build sustainability?
I think
How
it's
many
a
do we get back?
discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and how do we conquer that with our declining enrollment and our budget issues and blah, 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 blah. Is there a possibility to work with, to get tech, work with Renette or whatever on tech grants or whatever to just try to build a sustainability? Just saying. Anything else?
I think we've added enough work for folks here and for the board. But it's good, especially, I'm really excited about the legislative reports for us. I think it helps, I'd be really excited, especially if other boards in the area also add something similar, because it will add more accountability to our elected officials here. And it will make, I think, our region stronger from an advocacy standpoint if every board member in the area is educated on the legislative landscape.
And at some point, there is going to be created a basically countywide board meeting for advocacy and legislative awareness. And that's being worked out right now once the talking points are being worked out with capital advisors as we speak. And then that way, stand out this meeting, but then collectively, there'll be at some point all board members and all superintendents talking together to create a really solid advocacy group with the county. So I'm
I know
excited.
the Mountain High Desert groups, when we met last year, pre-pandemic at CSBA, there was our luncheon that we arranged.
Oh,
They wanted to do
yes.
follow up on that, but because we can't currently,
So
the superintendents have talked about it.
Mountain Desert or Desert Mountain, the desert wants to be first apparently in that country. There's an Eric Swanson called me and there's a tentative first meeting January 4th, but we're supposed to get emails with clarification. And once I get that, I'll let you guys know. And it's only our two areas and that's it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Moving on to 11.4, board goals, check-in. So you guys want to?
So Bill, and we're gonna get a survey, see if we do the CSBA survey. It sent out to us like April, right? We did that in April. And then from that, we have a workshop and we discuss the results. And from there, we create our board goals based on what the CSBA survey that we take ourselves. It's like self-evaluation, what it reveals. And that's how we got these goals.
Okay.
So we can't change the goals is what I'm saying, but you are more than welcome to comment on that.
So why don't we first take a look at goal number 1, that we are committed to a common vision.
We're never,
Anything that you might add anything to that or say anything about it or else?
I think we need to definitely
keep working at it.
hold ourselves accountable and make this a priority because it's been 2 years now that we wanted to move towards it. Our first year, we wanted to address it. Last year, we made it part of our board goals. So we're making incremental steps in that correct direction, but I think we need to make that mission and vision statement part more of a priority.
Yeah, just right now, if I asked the teacher to be, or a parent, or even a student to be part of the stakeholder group to work on this, I think we would flip out.
It's so hard because it is a priority, like it is so important that I'm not minimizing it. That's why we all put it as our first goal. But we have been so appropriately sidetracked and diverted to more important matters. Just the survival aspect of what we're doing right now, that it's hard to look deep into like where our visions are, where our goals are for the future. Because right now we're on like survive today, get to opening, get safe, get kids back. Like we have really short-term goals that require a lot more attention than that at this moment. I don't mean to be passing the buck and saying it's not important, because it absolutely is. I think having short-term and long-term goals is important, and the little steps that we take do build upon what our ultimate vision is. But I do want to give us some like slack in the sense of the timing has not been right to focus on these types of things within the past few months since we wrote this last.
I agree, definitely. And, when we reevaluate ourselves in May, we'll see if we don't know the future between now and May. Maybe there will be an opportunity where we can start taking it, very seriously. We get our heads above water and we can jump in. But to be fair as well, we did also have our annual LCAP discussion at our last board retreat. So we didn't, that mark we did hit under goal number 1. But the other A, B, and C, those are all related to mission vision statements. And I think,
We haven't.
but we still, like I said, we still have till May.
Well, the interesting thing is you're operating and have been operating on a mission and vision, whether you've got that written down or not. It might be good, might be interesting just to say what do people have informally? What are informal things that you have been operating with?
That's an interesting idea. Perhaps that might be a good way to address mission vision without starting the entire process, trying to ask people for extra time to get involved in stakeholder groups. That might be an interesting happy medium.
Maybe starting small with that and having that discussion, a little bit of brainstorming. Might make sense when we get to future agendas. That way, that might be something to add to have a discussion, focus on one or the other, I would say. And just start taking sort of chunks out of trying to establish that. Okay. Any more on goal 1? Goal 2? The River Unified School District will collaborate and inform the community on district priorities, enrollment forecasts, celebrations, meetings, and opportunities for involvement.
Yeah, I just have to say that at first, like in the spring, when we shut down, everything shut down, but now that everybody's discovered Zoom, I have so many Zoom meetings, it's not even funny. It's like almost like, hey, let's just have some more meetings because this is easier than just traveling to a place. So I'm just saying that I think we're doing, I'm still going to all my meetings, and I added a new responsibility. So I think, at least for me, I know that we did our time with trustees. We have to set some dates for this semester, but with all the Zoom meetings, I think that we've been able to hit on in every single Renette Foundation gap. I know I'm going to the
Site councils.
yeah,
It is, PTOs are.
yeah, PTAs are happening in some form. So I think that we're doing pretty well in going to the community meetings. Time with trustees, we did. I mean, we're still getting only 1, 2, 3 people, but at least it's gonna take time. And I think that we just keep doing them and see what happens. So, see what happens. But I think we're doing pretty well on this one.
Having been a member of the community over the last few years, it's been interesting to have board members out and communicating what's going on. I would make a cautionary statement that the idea of trying to dispel rumors and myths would be an unending and almost impossible task. I'm not sure that that's
Well,
a good statement, but I understand what you're trying to do.
well, part of it is that when you hear the big rumors, then you use that as a talking point when you go before like Arrowhead Mac or GAC and say, this is X rumor that's going around. It didn't happen. La 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 la. I mean, it's not every single rumor in myth, but some of the big ones, like and trying to put positives.
There's a
Creating
lot that
positive,
people don't know.
yeah, and creating positive stories, especially with our secondary schools, because secondary schools have been attacked so much that having positive, hey, did you know what's going on at PH or Brim High School? It's not totally dispelling a myth, but it's creating positive news that helps chip away at that myth.
And I think that, all of us agree that transparency is one of the most important things that we can have, to the ability that we can be transparent. Obviously, there are certain matters that we have to keep private, and we all do, I think, a very good job at doing that also. But we want people to be aware of what is actually going on in the district. And I don't think like side skirting issues is ever an appropriate way to go about that. So I think that's why we just like to directly face them head on and say, hey, we know that this is what the talk is. Let us inform you what our understanding of that is. And I'm usually met with appreciation by whatever community member or staff or teacher that I'm talking to about that. Because they in the past have not gotten that level of communication, respect, energy to know that actually how you think about this matter does really matter to me. So I'm trying to get you all of the accurate information that I'm legally allowed to disclose to you. So you know what's really going on.
Truth, transparency, integrity all really matter. Sometimes though the repeating of rumors to try to dispel them adds to the rumor mill.
Yeah.
And that's just my cautionary.
I think it has also provided, it's been an invaluable way for us to not just provide information, but to also collect and receive feedback. I've received great, information, positive or negative. It provides an opportunity for people to ask questions again, and for us to take that feedback and, bring it back and change our direction, or just add it into, contextual standpoint. So I think it's not just been good for us, here's what's going on, but also to receive all that information. It was especially critical when we were going after Measure A, to be able to go out and receive that feedback. And our community, yes, they're appreciative, but they're not going to hold back any punches. If they disagree with something, they will ask us the hard questions at these meetings. And I appreciate that all of these community meetings allow us the opportunity to respond.
I would say even at our last PTA meeting, Cindy was very kind to step into the treasurer position because that's just what she needs to do at LAE. And, you know, people were like, well, hey, I know this isn't like, you're not in the board member role, but since you're here, can we ask this or can we share this? And it's like, yeah, please share, like, let us know because we don't know sometimes unless we're told, because we can't be everywhere at all times with eyes on everything. So, yeah, there's definitely that. Because we are part of those groups, they feel safe and comfortable and more informal ways to come and approach us.
And the good part is that when the Late Start Bill was in the mix in the very beginning, it's my soapbox. Talked about it at Government Affairs Committee, and they took a position on the bill. The Bureau had not. They got a lot of questions on that bill from Michelle and Rosick about it and the impacts it would have on our district, and made some recommendations that we could take a look at and things like that. So it was very interesting going to the different community organizations and for them to realize, like at the Government Affairs Committee, Jordan was there. They're like, well, wait a second, what is the impact that this is going to have on our businesses that hire high school students? And all of a sudden they were like, well, wait a second, that's pushing like 2 hours into a time that we usually have them at our restaurant or at Snow Valley. And then all of a sudden that became a conversation within the business community. So that was a good thing because they weren't aware that there was a bill that will impact their business at some point. So it was good. But I think we're doing good on that one. I'm gonna give ourselves props. It's not so.
I would agree with that. I don't have anything to add. So ready to go to goal number 3? The World Unified School District School Board adopts a fiscally responsible budget aligned to the district's visions and goals.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Jenny. You hold our hand, the whole thing, and I can't wait till the debrief next month after the governor's budget and see what how we can unpackage that.
I must say, I really appreciate what you've done, Jenny. I also appreciate that our staff, in terms of negotiations, are also waiting to see what we're dealing with as well. So we have no idea what we're working with right now, and I appreciate that everybody understands that.
I would say, of course, let's see, we're hitting all of these things that we asked, ourselves to commit to. We're still receiving monthly updates on union negotiations, enrollment and attendance reports, facilities updates. We're receiving all of those. LCAP was revised to LCD. But we still did that. We've got our governance calendar. That's unlocked for budgetary evaluations and fiscal reviews and our budget committees. I mean, I would like to congratulate the budget committee, but Jenny, of course, did a lot of the heavy lifting for that committee, so especially a shout out to Jenny. But, I've been pleased. We established that budget committee, and 2 years on, it's been making good suggestions. Obviously, the capital one.
Yeah, I will make you out too. I haven't done that yet.
I've got one person turn their homework in.
I know, I'm gonna do it I'm gonna do it on break.
If they have homework to get.
I have had.
Homework?
We have to do it.
Budget committee, so you get a pass there.
Oh, good. Didn't miss an assignment?
So it's interesting because this was a couple of years ago, but it was interesting that I was in one of the CSBA trainings and this gentleman, because I was talking about our governance calendar and what's incorporated into including our budget reports. And he was like a new board member, had never even heard of this stuff. That's not the way their board receives information, or a governance calendar or anything or board goals. So he literally asked me to send what I had. So I sent our timeline at a glance, and I sent our big governance calendar that had everything on it. And I sent our board goals and all this. And he's like, this is great. And I'm thinking, oh my God, she's going to go to his district and say, Bryn does it this way, how come we're not doing it this way? But I'm just saying is that he was beyond belief how much information we get and how much focus we have on the budget in terms of every month and Friday updates.
I do want to add for those listening, just as an awareness factor, is that we also educate ourselves in regards to the budget. So it's not us just taking Jenny's budget for what she presents to us, not that we don't trust her, but we do trainings with CSBA, we do go to the governor's budget workshop. We get this information way before this meeting and have opportunities to ask questions and to seek clarification. So when we're here and it looks like we just go, yay, Jenny, you're the greatest, which she is. It's not that we just sign off her work without really digging into it and evaluating it. It has a lot of eyes on it. And we are educating ourselves on how to look at budgets, how other districts do that, how other boards do that. So we are doing it in a sound and safe manner. And I think that that's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes that, again, isn't seen when you're just watching a board meeting and you hear us giving praise. So I want those out there to be aware of that.
I think that's a great point, and I think, we've made some efforts, this board packet, for example, is relatively short, it's only 194 pages long. So, there is, I think it's important to emphasize, there is a lot of homework that's required of us. And, yeah.
So I feel like we're meeting that goal. We all do put the effort into all of those things.
This is true. Moving on to goal number 4, the River Road Unified School District Board sets direction for the school district.
I think we do. I set direction on the wrong agenda item. That was brilliant. I think I was so excited. I think that our constant monitoring and your request for math K-12, English K-12, is that when we educate ourselves and when we're really diving down deep into the data, into the LSAT, into school plans and everything, that we then go, oh, okay, we need to do this, and we need to do this as monitoring processes, and I think we're this board is getting really good at that, of understanding how to monitor without dictating how. We're getting super good at the what.
I'd also say that, one thing for us to be more cognizant of, myself included, is making sure that point B, that the school board recognizes individual board members do not attempt to direct the superintendent. I think sometimes we get, especially last year, I remember last year after the annual education conference, we were all just flooded with an immense amount of great ideas, and we were so excited, and there's a struggle to kind of tame yourself from being excited about all of these things that can be done versus running to Michelle or Todd or Jenny or Heather, and saying, here's all this great stuff, and then not realizing that it might sound like this is something you should do.
Or Mr. Swam, let's not
Yes.
forget about him, because he's bored out there, we need to wake him up. Come on. Let's tell you what to do with special education, not.
I would agree with that. I think that as time has gone on and as there's more just trust and understanding amongst the board, that at least I feel, or I hope, and if we, not that I'm soliciting Ms. Murphy's feedback right now, but that I don't tend to go to her with like, there's this, and this, can you solve it kind of things, but that I'm available for her to come to me, and if she wants my input or opinions on things, that I will provide that, but very rarely am I anymore saying this is a problem, go solve. How are you going to solve it, or it needs addressing. But I think early on I did see that as my role, and part of the learning process is that is not my role. I feel like
You have no individual
we're doing
authority.
a bit better job as a whole at that. Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle, did you give him some props for us yet?
I will say, when you did this self-evaluation, the reason these are on there is because I don't know if there was the trust between everyone that wasn't happening behind the scenes by individual board members. But this is a year's growth, and I think that, that because it was brought to our attention via the survey, that people made a conscious effort to just sort of the way they word things, like Natalie said, even just the way she words things is appropriate and questionary versus directed, yeah.
I think it's something we should continue to keep in mind. As we get more comfortable with one another, I think, we still are elected officials, and the way that we act or talk towards someone could be influential in ways we might not anticipate. And like I said, myself included, I need to keep on top of that and make sure that I'm not in any way ever imposing myself, because I have no individual authority. It's only the board as a whole that can assign direction. But that would be my criticism for go forward. I think overall we have been making good efforts for our other items.
You have the measurable indicators written.
They're in the LCAP.
There were, Cindy?
In the LCAP, there's measurable outcomes for all of these. In the school plans, there are measurable outcomes for the sites. Each site has their own measurements that they have set for themselves. If they want to raise their ELA scores by 5% or whatever their target is. So each site in their school plan, which you can find online.
And the board has adopted those?
We approved those in June. And then we are going to, in January next month, approve an addendum with any modifications or changes. Usually the modifications and changes are budgetary in nature, because maybe they, after looking at their data that usually comes in the fall, they may decide, you know what, we need to redirect and maybe go a little bit more into an EL professional development based on our EL classification numbers. So we're going to add that and into our Title I funds or something like that. So it's looking at your data, and they're looking at what you planned in June and doing tweaks. But the school plans are all based upon measurable data, basically, for the most part.
As far as these specific board goals, they're tasks that we've given ourselves to accomplish. And like in terms of, especially goal number 4, it's a self-evaluation. It's not a data-driven evaluation. And the process doesn't at this point include any community input, or it's really us about us. So it's not, these goals are not set up as measurable.
Yeah, the indicators that we were talking about is that we're making sure that the district has the measurable goals and measurable indicators. We're just making sure that the LCAP has them, the SIPSIS have them. That's part of our monitoring process. We haven't really looked at equity, and that was one thing where we decided that we were going to create the equity committee, and we talked about that at the future agenda items, but that was one area that we all felt like needed to be addressed and worked on, and yeah. And so that's one area where there isn't a measurable indicator, because we can measure tell them some of the climate and culture, but in terms of, and there are some questions that relate to equity, but in equity itself, we haven't really dealt with.
A lot of these, I think it is important to distinguish between board goals, superintendent goals, for example, and district goals that you find in the LCAP. Those are all different types of goal sets that are managed in different ways. Obviously, what we expect the superintendent to do is going to be one set of goals, and hopefully they all align with one another. And the LCAP, where you are taking a lot of those measurable and a lot of those data-driven approaches, we incorporate that in a way that is not just created internally, but also with our community and stakeholder groups. So there is, I think, a very fine line to distinguish between each of these types of goals, these being board goals in particular.
And one of the things is that when we get our reports from, whether it's the high school or Heather will bring the EL report, she really talks about the EL program and what we're doing well, what's going on in the program, so we have an idea, then we can say, we can ask, how are we classifying students more effectively? What are we doing differently to help give them the support? Those are good questions to ask, to monitor that kind of, as a board.
Right, goals for how we ourselves operate.
And then, you know, when we get into a retreat, if we go, you know what, HHE, which is my thing, I'm not gonna lie. It's like, what are we doing about it? How are we doing it? Which is a monitoring piece, and we can talk about our expectations when we have those reports or when we get into LCAP discussions,
Right.
things like that.
EO classification, another one. Right.
So, is there any more discussion on goal number 4? So, anything else related to our board goals check-in?
Well, we know that mission vision is something that we're just doing a lot of work on. But we'll figure it out.
Big goal, so. Okay. And moving on to 12.0, the action calendar. My glasses on again. 12.1, superintendent approval to revise the attached board policies, administrative regulations, and exhibits to our policies and procedures. The revisions were provided by the California School Board Association. Pages 99 of the agenda. A motion.
So wait,
Fiscal impact 9. So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? That was actually a motion by Natalie and second by Jordan. Any discussion?
I'd say, if you're interested in some light reading, might want to give it a once through, but I think every time this comes up, we always thank one CSBA for that very nominal fee, you know, doing a lot of legislative work. A big thank you to all our administrative staff that goes through these recommendations from CSBA and make sure that they're applicable to us in a way. And Connie, of course, for putting them all together. That's no small feat. If you look through our board packet, you'll even see, you know, when we revise policies, it will actually be highlighted what language is changing, which makes it so much easier for us as well. But also for anybody interested to see what policies are being changed and why are they being changed and what are they being changed to. On ours, you know, on page 1, it's a summary sheet of here's all of the policies that we'll be touching and why we're touching them. You'll see that most of them are due to state law, you know.
Not much to argue there.
Well, I learned a lot by reading through it.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Let's go ahead and vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Number 12.2, superintendent approval to provide the first and/or second reading for the following proposed new exhibits to be added to our policies and procedures. The exhibits were provided by the California School Board Association, E1113 district and school websites, E4119-12/4319.12/4319.12, Title 9 sexual harassment complaint procedures, and E5145.71 Title 9 sexual harassment complaint procedures. Fiscal impact 9. So moved. Second. Motion by Cindy, seconded by Natalie. Any discussion? Okay, so go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously. 12.3, personnel services, approval of the personnel page. fiscal impact budgeted. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by George, seconded by Natalie. Discussion? Go ahead and vote. All in favor? Opposed? Nay. Motion passed. Action, the motion passed unanimously. 12.4, business services, approval of the 2020-2021 first interim financial report. Thank you, Jenny. And certification of the district's financial position, fiscal impact none.
So moved.
Seconded by Natalie. Any discussion?
Thank you.
I think we should be clear as well, you know, I mean, we're approving a financial report. Obviously, our budget has financial implications and financial impacts, but, you know, thank you, Jenny, for all of the work that you put in. We've asked a lot of questions, you know, I think the only important thing to note, or if I were to take one huge thing away from the first interim financial report, for me, it would be that financial cliff that we're looking at 22-23, you know, just catching up to the ADA hold harmless, rather ADA hold harmless catching up with us. That would be my biggest worry that I see, but it does give me a little bit of comfort seeing that, you know, fourth year has always been a big issue for us, but I see that, you know, our deficit spending looks like it's been reduced a little bit, and it looks like, you know, that ADA hold harmless does extend the cliff a little bit away from us. It doesn't solve our problems at all, but that would be my big takeaway before we approve something like this.
Okay, any other comments? Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously. 12.5, business services, approval of the budget overview for parents BOQ report for the 2020-2021 school year. Fiscal impact, none.
So moved.
Bill made the motion. Second. Natalie seconded. Any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving on to 13.0, the consent calendar. Does anybody want to pull?
I'll pull 13.3.
Anything else? Okay. So you need to back. Bottom here, okay, I just read the items, right? So, 13.3, so for 13.1, 13.2, 13.4, 13.5, 13.6, 13.7, and 13.8. Have a motion?
So moved.
Cindy's made the motion. And Nelly seconded. Any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay. Moving on to 14.0, items removed from the consent calendar. We have item 13.3, educational services, approval of purchase of 6 new servers, Victory USA for River School District. Fiscal impact approximately $79,884.97 for the district coronavirus relief fund.
So moved.
Jordan's made the motion.
Second.
What? Okay, so we got Jordan made the motion, Bill seconded.
I wanted to bring this up because, you know, obviously it's a large purchase. And I know that our current servers are end of life. I don't know if you want to invite Mike Maloney at all to the conversation to talk about how end of life they are for us and how helpful 6 new servers would be.
Are you asking?
I'm asking if we can invite him.
Yes.
Come on up.
So we can hear you.
So you want me to talk about end of life? end of life in any type of technology means that first, the manufacturer doesn't support it through a warranty purpose. Second, parts are difficult to find if you can even find any. So with the 6 servers that will be replaced, I did pull the server that was at Grandview and Lake Gregory, and have used those for parts to keep the 6 ones that we have right now behind. So, it is a large expense.
How old are those servers?
The ones we have currently, well, they range from 5 to 7 years old.
Oh,
Yeah,
What is the average life of the server?
5 years. 5 years.
if you're a large corporation of sorts, you might be getting new servers every couple of years to keep up with it. But since we're a government institution, we get to go with the full lifespan and usually beyond it.
Very true.
And I think it's also important to note that this, we're getting a little bit of a steal because this is not the full cost. That 79,000 is not the full cost of the servers. I think, if I'm reading this right, the project total is nearly 140,000, and that's due to some matching funds from the county, I believe. And that's a huge win for us. I think, I don't, this is not one of those popular types of expenses that come up. They're very costly, and not really many people understand or see or feel the importance of those. They just experience it. So I'm really,
Like right now?
I'm really pleased that we were able to use some coronavirus relief funds for an important purchase like this. And again, it's not very fun purchase for some, but it's an important one, very important.
Well, and I think in the minds that we have on technology for all of our education at this point, I'm hopeful that the community and other, it's the right word. I just like stakeholders are able to understand why this investment is necessary at this point.
And also, the pricing seems fair overall from an industry standpoint. Their hourly rates for all of their, resources that would be devoted to this are pretty spot on for the industry. They're not, super out of line. They're not super cheap either. But, again, getting those matching funds is really helpful.
Is there any way that our old servers can be put to use, or will they be?
You could put anything to use. I wouldn't put anything like a critical service on. For me, just the hassle would be a hassle.
How much maintenance do you think that you have to devote or resources really to keeping the current servers you have up and running?
Well, servers are robust in their own because they are servers. So they have, backups and power supplies and things like that. But it's hard to say. You could go 2 or 3 months without touching one, and you can touch 3 in a week. So,
when they go wrong, it requires a lot of.
Right, when servers go down, something's wrong. Yeah.
Well, thank you definitely for providing insight. I wanted to point out, because one, it's a large expenditure, but I also wanted to point out that we're getting a lot of matching funds that cover 50% of it there, and to just illustrate or demonstrate the need, because there is a need. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other discussion? Go ahead and vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Moving on to 15.0, governance team future agenda items planning. 15.1, time allotted for the Board of Trustees to request agenda items for future meetings.
So I think that we wanted a follow-up report from Tori Burke's report of last month, correct?
Yes.
Specifically, I think the gaps in this and the information that came in regards to social, emotional, and mental health issues in her presentation. And then the second thing
It was
is,
both. It was the
Right.
health as well as the grades, and I'm just wondering about how we're getting reporting on just how the elementary, for example, are doing as well.
So will the February change to the governance calendar not suffice for covering?
That's what I was going to ask, if it would.
the other thing is that equity committee, we haven't set a date for meeting yet. What I suggest is maybe we reach out to our PACER, CSBA PACER, Nikki. Had talked to me that she does equity foundational training, or Dr. Betters, who's from the county, who worked closely with San Bernardino City Unified on equity, their equity resolution, their whole equity policy. So,
Which that would be part of the committee reaching out to do that,
right,
not us in a board setting. So for the board agenda, what we're gonna need is a opportunity to schedule the first one of
Right.
those meetings, and then we pass it off to the
Right.
committee.
right,
But we also need maybe to include an opportunity for Bill to be part of that committee also.
so on the next
those
agenda,
two things have to be on the agenda.
so the next agenda, we could put, revisit who's on the equity committee.
Are we going to push our progress report from the January meeting to a different one?
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, makes
But
sense.
then in terms of, I think that in terms of establishing a first workshop committee meeting, we need to be able to ask when they're available. Well, that's before we start. I think that in terms of recommendations that people have made in terms of a good beginning platform of like, what is equity? What are we talking about? Let's establish, what does that mean? There's two people that we can do research more, but Nikki Dietmer, our CSA PACER, has worked with boards on equity and equity training. Dr. Betters has done, a lot of different foundational trainings.
I think it would be important for that committee to be able to, just like the budget committee, the first meeting or few, especially for budget, was all educational. Let's lay down some foundation and agree on some basic terms.
Right, but
I think that would be important. Yeah.
so if we don't know what we don't know, so what we need to do is know what we don't know.
Right.
And so we need, like, what does it mean? What does equity mean when we look at it through the lens, your district through that lens of being a board member?
So do we do that before we form the committee?
So we formed the committee, but we're going to add Bill. We should
Well,
ask you.
he's
No, but
interested in
we
joining.
also mentioned having various community stakeholders as committee members. So while we had the current
No,
board.
they're not on the committee, they're part of, like, the work that we do. They intend to give us feedback. But the first part, I think we were all talking about, we just need education first before we do any work.
And the community members would contribute, they wouldn't be mandated to come every time we have a meeting, because they're not part of,
The board
The
created
board.
committee.
it's not, yeah, they're not part of the committee, but they would be invited to give their feedback and input.
And they can even attend the educational part, and listen in, same way, since we follow Brown Act, and then see other stakeholders, community members, or parents, or teachers, or classified, they can learn with us.
So it sounds like for our January meeting, having an agenda item in terms of discussing when we can have our first actual equity. meeting.
Establishing maybe a meeting calendar.
Yeah, okay.
But the biggest thing is that our meeting calendar, especially in the beginning, when we're inviting professionals, is going to be based upon their ability, their timeline, their openness.
Right. But that committee has to get together, or at least set a meeting date.
So
Who's
maybe-
on the equity committee?
All of us.
All of us.
Well,
Well, you don't have to be, but I'm hoping you would be.
officially, yeah, officially it's just the four of us at the moment, but yeah, you will have the opportunity. opportunity, of course, to join.
How's that happen?
We're putting
We
it
have
on
to agenda.
next month's agenda.
So,
So we're not cutting you out, we're actually making you be part of it.
we're not committing you to it.
Okay.
We're throwing you under the bus.
So we're creating an opportunity.
So the
to
committee's
discuss it.
not made up of other educators and committees. Okay.
This committee was created as a board committee, and then as such, it has to be as board members on it. Typically, subcommittees traditionally have 1 or 2 board members on it, or 3. The reason that we did a board committee is because we had
Many of us.
many of us wanted to do this, and if more than 3 board members are meeting about something, then it falls under the Brown Act. So we created an official.
More than 2.
Right, so thank you, more than 2, because then 3 would constitute the majority of the board, so we created a board committee to address it, and the goal of it is to definitely bring in experts and stakeholders to listen and learn from, and to take that evaluation.
And then
The committee cannot take any action, but it can formulate suggestions and bring them to the board
make
at large.
recommendations to the board, including like, if we want to do a resolution on equity, what is our equity statement? That's one of the tasks that this committee is going to be given to make a recommendation back to ourselves. And then taking a look if we want to go further with actual board equity policy. School boards have equity policy, we could go in that, there's just that, but we have to educate ourselves on what equity is. What does that mean to us as a board as we look at our school district systemic racism and that kind of thing? How does it affect learning and opportunity and equitable access to opportunities? So
It's an optional conversation. At this moment, it happens to be that 4 out of 5 board members wanted to be part of it when we created it. And if you join as well, it is the same people talking about something
Making
new.
recommendations.
But a specific thing.
About a specific thing. But, that's just the logistics of it as of today. The board will change, the board will shift. And years after year, some board members may not be able to participate, and that's why it's a committee. It's not part of our governance calendar because I think it warrants its own study.
And that's what we're discussing right now, is getting it on into the agenda, our next meeting, so we can start this particular tool. Do we wish to include for a future agenda item, passing out missions, the mission of values?
I don't know if we want to tackle it in January. Maybe we can, maybe we add it to a future agenda item at the January meeting, or if we want to, I don't know how this is works.
No, it's a lot, right?
Maybe May.
Let's just make a mental note to.
So not let it get away from us.
Yeah.
please, you may want to add it to the March.
Or even the board retreat at this point because of the pandemic and.
Because we really can't have stakeholders, like we want to have stakeholders involved at this point. So, and that's the whole purpose, is to get buy-in with everybody. That's what they always say, make sure you involve everybody.
Are there any other items to add for agenda items and plans for 15.0? Moving on. That's actually for 15.1. 16.0, future board meeting, the future meeting dates pending board approval. Regular board meeting January 28th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. It will be here, broadcast on YouTube. Regular board meeting February 18th, 2021 at 5:30. Again, it will be meeting here and it'll be broadcast on YouTube. All future meetings will be held via YouTube for the public until executive orders change regarding gatherings. 17.0, recess to closed session if necessary, and I do not believe that's necessary.
No.
17.0, okay, so moving on to 18.0, adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:08 p.m.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion